Welcome to the Restricted Handling Podcast. Let's dig in. Here's what's been going on in Russia in the last 24 hours. Remember how yesterday we said the Berlin peace track was on fire? Well, today, Putin poured gasoline on it. He stood before his generals in Moscow and made it official. Russia's sticking to the same maximalist goals it launched this war with back in 2022. He promised Russia will undoubtedly achieve its war goals, repeating his favorite buzzwords, demilitarization and denazification. Translation: Ukraine doesn't get sovereignty unless it looks like a Russian satellite. He even threw in that little gem about liberating historical lands, the kind of throwback that sounds like he's auditioning for a Soviet reboot. Defense Minister Andrei Belosov joined the performance, boasting that Russian forces are carving out buffer zones in Kharkiv and Sumy and pushing toward Zaporizhia. He claimed Russia captured Kupiansk, which, for anyone keeping score, Ukraine's president literally filmed himself standing in days ago. It's like claiming you won a football game while the other team's still celebrating on the field. Belousov rattled off numbers. 6,000 square kilometers liberated this year. That's less than 1% of Ukraine. He's selling slow-motion warfare as victory. But here's where it gets interesting. He also admitted Russia's army isn't built for speed anymore. They're hunkered down in trenches using cheap drones, jerry-rigged electronic warfare, and four-wheelers to crawl forward. Think less blitzkrieg, more mud, wires, and endless attrition. And right on cue, Putin rolled out his favorite sci-fi props: the Burevestnik nuclear cruise missile, the Poseidon underwater drone, and the Oreshnik hypersonic system. He says they're all ready for combat duty. So yeah, while Europe debates budgets, Putin's out here monologuing like he's in a Cold War sequel nobody asked for. Speaking of Europe, that big EU fight over frozen Russian assets hit its moment of truth today. Brussels is trying to approve a €90 billion loan to Ukraine, backed by the €210 billion in frozen Russian central bank funds sitting at Euroclear in Belgium. It's the biggest you break it, you bought it plan in modern history. But Belgium, still holding the largest chunk of that cash, refuses to sign off unless other EU countries guarantee they'll share the legal risk if Moscow sues. And just to raise the stakes, Russia already has. Its central bank filed a $230 billion claim against Euroclear in a Moscow court this week. Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen are pushing hard to seal the deal, warning that without it, Ukraine's broke by spring. Von der Leyen said flat out she won't leave Brussels without an agreement. Meanwhile, Poland's Donald Tusk hit Europe with a mic drop line: money today or blood tomorrow. Europe's got the cash. The question is whether it's got the courage. Here's the twist. Russia's not just watching this drama, it's actively trying to spook it. European intelligence agencies confirmed that GRU operatives have been threatening Belgian officials and even Euroclear's CEO. They've been using intimidation, cyber attacks, and even drones buzzing around airports to make the point. The Kremlin told Belgium it would feel the consequences for eternity if it touches that money. Eternity. That's not diplomacy. That's straight Bond villain. The hybrid campaign goes deeper. In the Baltic, Sweden's navy spotted Russian tankers, part of Moscow's shadow fleet dodging sanctions, now sailing with armed guards on deck. Europe's calling it what it is: a quiet militarization of commercial shipping routes. And down south, French investigators found Russian spy devices hidden on a ferry that runs between France and Algeria. Twice. They were small Raspberry Pi computers hooked up to cellular modems, basically pocket-sized Trojan horses, giving the GRU eyes on board. Cyber operations are hitting Western infrastructure too. Yesterday, we talked about Amazon blowing open that long-running Russian hacking campaign targeting Western energy systems. Today, we've learned just how basic and dangerous it's gotten. US and European agencies say pro-Russian hacktivists are still exploiting exposed industrial systems using nothing more than weak passwords and remote logins. They're not breaking in through fancy exploits. They're walking in through unlocked doors. The scary part? They're still causing real disruption. Shutdowns, power losses, manual restarts. It's a digital guerrilla war, and it's working. Ukraine, though, continues to make Russia pay for every inch. Over the last 48 hours, Ukrainian drones have struck deep inside Russia. hitting a major oil refinery in Krasnodar, a depot in Rostov, and a tanker in the port of Rostov-on-Don. Those refineries feed Russia's military logistics, and the explosions are turning them into smokestacks on satellite imagery. Moscow confirmed casualties on that tanker strike. These aren't symbolic attacks, they're precision strikes on Russia's economic arteries. And back home, Ukraine's domestic arms industry is kicking into overdrive. Remember yesterday when we mentioned they were scaling up homegrown production? Now we've got details. The new Flamingo cruise missile is rolling off secret assembly lines. It's got a 3,000-kilometer range and a 1-ton warhead. One engineer said it's painted black because it eats Russian oil. Hard to top that kind of poetic revenge. Ukraine's producing more than half its own weapons now, about 200 drones a day, and is deliberately cutting reliance on U.S. parts to make sure no politician can turn off their supply chain overnight. And while Kyiv builds, the battlefield's shifting again. Ukrainian forces continue advancing around Kupiansk and Pokrovsk. Russian units are fighting hard in Kostiantynivka and along Zaporizhia, but progress is limited. Ukrainian commanders say the real difference maker now is drone density. Thousands of sorties a day, mapping and striking Russian lines. The downside? Ukraine's running short on infantry to hold the terrain they're taking. As one officer put it, we're out of infantry. The brain power and tech are there. The bodies aren't. Russia, on the other hand, keeps doubling down on firepower over finesse. Overnight, it launched another 70 drones at Ukrainian cities, hitting energy grids in Odessa, Zaporizhia, and Kharkiv. Around 180,000 people lost power. Some regions were already on rolling blackouts, and now engineers are racing to rebuild stations that keep getting bombed every few days. One executive compared it to repairing a plane while it's still flying. And inside Russia, the domestic clampdown continues. The FSB says it arrested 19 people across 12 regions for helping Ukrainian intelligence build communications networks. It also grabbed a railway worker in Chelyabinsk accused of passing train movement data to Kyiv. Meanwhile, hackers struck back. They wiped 80 servers from Micord, the company running Russia's military registry system, erasing 43 terabytes of data and knocking conscription services offline for nearly a week. Somewhere, an IT guy in Moscow is definitely sleeping with the lights on. As for the diplomatic front, the plot thickens. This weekend, U.S. envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff will meet Russia's Kirill Dmitriev in Miami to keep pushing that peace framework we've been tracking. Ukraine's negotiators are meeting the Americans tomorrow. The deal's still about 90% complete, but Russia's signaling it wants more land and fewer conditions. Meanwhile, Moscow's Foreign Intelligence Service is accusing the UK of desperately pushing Europe to steal Russian funds just to derail Trump's peace push. The Kremlin's version of events keeps getting wilder. Now they're saying Britain's threatening to drift toward China if Washington doesn't play along. NATO's not sitting still either. Secretary General Mark Rutte doubled down on his praise for Trump's defense spending push, saying Europe's pledge to hit 5% of GDP by 2035 is historic. He also warned Russia could hit a NATO country within 5 years, though Putin laughed it off as pure nonsense. Still, Europe's taking no chances. France and Germany are already dusting off their old conscription systems, just in case. Thanks for being a part of the RH community. Subscribe, leave a positive comment or 5-star review, and most importantly, help build our network by sharing this.